So the land use plan, unlike previous land use plans where you had homogeneous zones or districts, ends up being all about mix, which this kind of pointiest diagram indicates. There is mix in every part of the plan. What varies are the proportions and the qualities of the mix. Transit orientation becomes absolutely critical, getting our transportation engineers and the transit operators to understand these walking relationships and to place the system in relation to urban form. The most significant thing you can do in terms of sustainability is the relationship between land use and transportation. Urban form and building types. To get the kind of social diversity that we were looking for, we needed a great diversity of building types, and so the plan is constructed to privilege that. And this is an overview of the plan. As you can see, there is an enormous variety from low-rise, grade-related units to mid-rise, different tenure forms, rental, condominium, and really looking for what's called life cycle housing, the ability for people to move into this neighborhood as young people, to have their families, to grow older, to live there as seniors, and not necessarily be forced to move out of the neighborhood. This is one of my favorite diagrams from the plan, which really shows, it's a little hard to read, but all those jelly beans represent all the different kinds of amenities, the schools, the daycare, the healthcare, the community centers, the recreation, as well as the different kinds of opportunities in the parklands for different forms of recreation that will really make this a dynamic neighborhood. So these are just, this is the standard stuff that we do. At some point we make images and we show people what if you were to do all these things, what would a crossing of the channel look like where you have cyclists and transit vehicles and pedestrians and cars, and you have the promenade along the edge of the channel, and all these things actually come together to make new urban places. How would people actually get to the waterfront? This is coming from the city behind, a very prominent area called the Distillery District, leading right down to the water and actually across this channel into this parkland. And the public now demands to see this kind of imagery, this simulation of all parts of the plan. This is along Queens Quay with the introduction of the new light rail, and then extending south of the channel, and this is connecting up the river valley itself. And then finally, drawing back for this overview, this big, long-standing ambition of the community to have the Don River reconnect in a more graceful, less hard-lined, engineered way to Lake Ontario and to the outer harbor, which you see here. So through all this, I hope I've given you a sampling of the kinds of things that I get involved in. I could have picked any number of projects to illustrate this. I'm going to end with something which is more at a neighborhood scale. My wife actually works for one of our local councilors. In his particular ward, he has 80,000 people that he has to keep in touch with, and what he deals with on a daily basis is these increments of change. And so this little diagram is about taking the players in this dynamic, the councilor, P&D means the Planning and Development Department on the upper right, the neighborhoods themselves, and the developers, and actually creating a dynamic among these parties with feedback channels and clear expectations. And this all comes down to, in the end, a kind of information sharing. And this is an image of the ward, which is broken down into different neighborhoods. This is Spadina Avenue, which is right in the heart of the ward. And to finish, I'm just going to show you a little clip from the councilor's website. This is something that was actually put together by a group of students for him, which is I think it's a very interesting and effective, you will all probably say still somewhat primitive tool, but I think it illustrates the kind of thing that we're attempting to do these days.
Hi, welcome to the Ward 20 website. I'm your city councilor, Adam Vaughn. Now, you've already found us on the internet, but what you haven't found yet are the development maps that are a unique feature of this website and have been prepared to help residents in Ward 20 deal with new development in the community. On the homepage, if you click on Community Maps or on the map icon, you'll be directed towards a page which lists all the neighborhood associations in the ward. Find your neighborhood association and click on it. Up comes a development map. Now this map has red dots on it. Each red dot represents an active application in the ward. Click on a red dot, and up comes a profile of the project that's proposed for your neighborhood. Often, there's a website that links to a developer's website where you can see pictures of the building and get a profile of exactly who is proposing the project. There's also another feature. It's called a development map. When you click on the development maps, up come a much more complicated set of maps that residents and residents associations, as well as businesses and business associations, have worked together to prepare. If you click on the top left-hand corner where there are two little sheets of paper, you'll get a drop-down menu that identifies all the different characteristics that define your neighborhood. If you click on the eye icons, you take them off the map, like layered transparencies. But what's really interesting is that you can start putting them back on the map and combine different features of your community to give context to what's ever proposed for your neighborhood. Start with the base map, for example. You can click on Parks, and the green dots represent where the parks are in your neighborhood. You can click on Heritage, and the red buildings show up as well. This allows us to properly understand the context in which new development's occurring. Another feature, if you click on the back button and look beneath the development map, you'll see an icon entitled the Neighborhood Checklist. Click on that. Up comes a series of scorecards that will help us assess new development in each community as it gets proposed. Each one of these scorecards will be prepared by residents in your neighborhood with assistance from your community associations. They define the different characteristics that a building needs to meet if it wants to get the approval of residents in your immediate vicinity. Each neighborhood is a different one. This whole process has been put together not just by my office, but by all the residents associations making contributions to create a common set of contexts that allow us to assess new development, both from a contextual perspective, but also evaluate it on a building-by-building process.
Okay, well, I hope I've given you a little taste of how what you do might look like from my world. So thank you very much.
Okay, we've got time for just a few questions, and then I know everybody probably has to catch planes and things, so we'll then wrap up. So, questions, please.
Ken, great presentation.
Use your push on your button.
We've seen lately Google coming out with tools like SketchUp for authoring in 3D and Google Earth for putting together large city models and visualizing them. And I suppose we can expect that this is going to change the balance and capabilities between the public, who typically in the past have had to rely on professionals such as you to measure things and to represent things, and in the future they'll probably be able to be capable of critiquing your plans or coming up with their own or adjusting things. Have you noticed that happening already, or what are your expectations?
Yeah, it has absolutely happened. If you go back several decades when I was just starting out in practice, just to take a really simple thing, it was very difficult and expensive to create a three-dimensional representation of a neighborhood. So when somebody was coming along and designing a building, you would get the architects producing perspective renderings as they saw it, which usually focused on their building as an object, and everything else was kind of sidelined and often misrepresented. So there was the expression, there are lies, damn lies, and architects' renderings. But now everybody pretty much has access to the kind of at least objective, factual three-dimensional modeling, and most neighborhoods have the capability of taking what's presented to them and testing it for accuracy.